Hello and welcome to Piano Shack with me, Woody. This is the ROLAND AIRA COMPACT J6. A bit of a mouthful, but in a nutshell, it's an emulation of the Juno 6 with a very cool and nifty chord sequencer built in for instant idea generation. Let's take a look at it. Well, the design is actually very cool. I like this funky little thing. Entirely made of plastic, but really solid, thick plastic. This thing doesn't creak, flex or anything at all. And I love the colors. This is the S1, which is in a very nice green. This one's in blue. Absolutely gorgeous. You're probably wondering, what are these controls like to operate since they are so tiny? I can tell you they feel fantastic. You have to operate them with your fingertips because they are so small, but they are smooth, very responsive, no slop or wobble on them. The rubber buttons feel fine as well. Yeah, it's actually really pleasant and enjoyable to operate this. No complaints whatsoever. We have also a built-in lithium battery. You can see this is powered on right now. There's no battery compartment. It's built in and you charge it via USB-C. We have inputs and outputs. The idea is you can chain these together as well using a single stereo 3.5mm jack plug. We don't have proper MIDI ins and outs, and who can blame Roland when these are as small as they are? So you will need to have one of those dongle things. I think this is type A. Always a pain in the arse with it, excuse my French, with these dongles, but yeah, it is what it is. Roland had no choice since these things are so compact. You could literally slip this into your pocket if you have like baggy pants. As for the controls, and don't worry, I'll give you some close-up shots of these as well. We have a 1-octave keyboard for playing your chord progressions. We have some basic controls for manipulating the sounds and the steps of our sequence over here, and a few function buttons scattered around as well. All work really well. Although you will need to be shifting and using the alternative functions that are labeled here underneath the keyboard. I think with a bit of time, you'll get that into your muscle memory, so that's no big deal. So what are the features of this then? Well, the first thing to mention, it's got the digital emulation of the classic Juno 6 analog synthesizer from the early 80s. Perhaps, no doubt about it, my favourite synth of all time. I have one actually of my own back in the UK. This though is the digital ACB, analog circuit behaviour modelling, I think is what that means. It's hard to keep up with all of Roland's sound engine technologies, but bottom line, sounds absolutely wonderful, and this thing actually deserves to be used, in fact, as a sound module and connected up to an external keyboard via MIDI. And then it sounds like this. The Juno 6 though was 6-note polyphony. On this it's only 4. Well, I give Roland a hard time for that, but on a device like this it doesn't really matter too much, I found, and it works fine for its intended purposes, which is sequencing interesting chord progressions. A big part of the Juno 6 was the chorus effect. You don't have access to adjust those parameters, but it does seem to be there in some of the presets. yeah, this thing has about 64 different preset sounds as well that you can just flick through. They all sound great, but don't expect to be doing much tweaking of those sounds. So here's some demos of the sound tweaking capabilities of the J6. Okay, so that's the sound engine covered. Let's get on to the main raison d'etre of this, and that's to sequence interesting chord progressions. Now, there are banks of interesting chord types and chord progressions on board in various genres like EDM or synthwave, some pretty hip stuff, and then utility chord progressions and diatonic chord progressions and everything. So you load up a chord bank, and then each of these buttons will trigger a new chord that all work really well together. It's actually astonishing how cool some of these chord progressions are. And I know lots of nice chords, but I wouldn't think necessarily of putting these chords together. They sound great. So once you've found a nice chord bank that you like, you can add a pattern to it. And a pattern can be like a basic arpeggiator like we've had on classic synths of the past, or even today, or you can add like a chopped, like plucky pattern, or there's strums to simulate how a guitar might be played, for example. There's about 100 patterns. I actually wish there were more, and I wish you could program your own patterns. You can't, you're stuck with the factory ones, 100 of them. And they're divided up into categories and then variations. But anyway, plenty to keep you busy. And then you can sequence your chord progressions into this sequencer, which is 64 steps, and I think you can store 64 of these sequences. The sequences are stored together with whatever sound you've loaded and whatever tweaks you've made to the sound as well. So yeah, A patch on this is a complete sequence and all of the sounds needed to replay it. It works really well actually in practice. Here's a few that I made earlier. And although this is a chord sequencer, you don't have to just sequence chords. You can sequence a bass line, for example, no problem at all. And if you don't want to use the chord banks, you can even record your own chords, whichever ones you like. So hugely flexible. The chord banks and the chord progressions are in here if you want to use them and sequence them, but you can do your own as well. So very powerful, actually. So what are my thoughts on this then? I think it's absolutely wonderful. It sounds great. The chords that Roland provides sound absolutely fabulous. It truly is an inspiration machine. If you're looking for ideas to start a track, make a song, this one delivers. I think Roland really nailed it with this and on the Tweak synth, and as far as I can tell, all the other little AIRA, never know how to say that, compacts. Absolutely fantastic concept. Yeah, well done, Roland. These are astonishingly good and very affordable. Did I say these are about 200 bucks each? Yeah, I suppose it becomes quite a lot actually if you buy 4 of these, but 5 of them I think there are in total now. So yeah, that's quite a lot of money. You could get a workstation instead, I guess, but individually they're very affordable. Some of the features are a little bit tricky to operate. You'll need to invest a little bit of time. And it's not always fully intuitive. You'll need to study the manual and learn all of these shift functions to get the best out of it. You can, for example, shift some of these keys to add swing or adjust the gate length of the sequence. I don't know, stuff like that. I haven't really dug into it, but yeah, you'll need to spend a bit of time to get the best out of this and develop some muscle memory on all of the shift functions as well. So be ready for that. So all in all, a pretty unique and marvelous device. I really love it. So we'll wrap it up here. Thanks very much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel. It costs me a lot of money to buy all this stuff and a lot of effort to make the videos. All I ask in return is that you sub to the channel. It means a lot to me. Thanks in advance, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.